I'm making furniture. I've made this example mock-up of a sofa. I'm going to do a slightly different one in this example. And I also want to demonstrate how Booleans work with this as well. So this is the original shape, but that was actually a cutout from another cube, which is actually live here. So I can see how you can adjust that cube shape by moving it around. So that's a live Boolean there. But there are some problems with Booleans in terms of giving you very messy topology on your objects. And the simpler part of this is to create the cushions. They're low poly, but they've sort of rounded edges on there as well. So we need to work in quads with this. So there's kind of every face should have 4 sides. So when you use a Boolean, sometimes it creates ngons, and that will give you difficult geometry when you start to try and smooth it. So it does start with a cube, a nice simple cube at the beginning. I'm in modeling standard as the layout, so I've got my outliner open and my viewport here. If you haven't got the outliner, go to Windows Outliner and you'll get a window for yourself. And also don't forget to set the project at the beginning, so send it to your work folder. So the dimensions of a sofa, I am going to give this a width of 240 centimeters. It's probably too large actually, 180 centimeters, which is kind of a large person's height. A height of 670, so it's got a larger back, and a depth of 75. So this is quite a large volume. If I want to check that I'm working with a decent size, I'm going to go to my content browser, and I'm going to drag on a human body into my scene. And this will just allow me to kind of get the scale. Now I have to remember that this shape isn't on the grid, so it's gone over the grid. So because it was 70 high, I need to raise it up in the y-axis, the y is the one here, by 37 centimeters. And then I should be able to see the grid underneath it. So it's just above the grid now. Why did I say 37? 35. But you can see that someone could stand on that, and I want to try and just get these heights right at the beginning. So I kind of wanted to have it maybe about 85. And then I need to just change that to 42.5. Okay, that seems about right to me. And what I'm going to do is hide this so that I don't interact with this. So this is just a reference for me. And what I can do is I can look at the channel box editor. If I show the channel box here, you get this in certain things. I often use this in animation rather than the attribute editor. It has some of the same information, so it's got all of the attributes from the main node here in a different way, and it's got some of the other nodes you can click on here. If it's long enough, it should give you, if there's attributes in there, you should be able to get those details. But what I'm really looking for is this display here. So the display layers allow you to create a layer from what you selected, and then you can make it transparent. So now it's not selectable, and it's just a reference for me for that size. Okay, now I'm getting back onto modeling. So I've got my sofa here. I've blocked it out. I'm going to duplicate this cube, and I've got two. It doesn't look like it's done any different, but I can scale that down, scale that out here. and I'm just going to place that into the area or the volume that I want to cut out for this sofa. So raise it up a bit higher and bring that back. Now I'm going to also go into the modeling toolkit here and select edges and bring this aspect back slightly so that it's got a slope on the back rather than a straight edge. I wasn't very happy with that on my last object, the one I showed you at the beginning. It's very straight back. I think I still need to scale it so the arms are a bit wider, so you can rest your arms on it a bit easier. And I also want to have a drop off point there as well, so I want to be able to have this back but also have the arm rest a little bit lower. So for this I'm going to use for the modeling toolkit the Multicut tool. I should be able to insert an edge loop into this object. So an edge loop goes all the way around the object. So by holding down the control key and left clicking the object, I'm then able to just add a loop of edges all the way around this object. So I'm going back to the select tool. It's on vertices at the moment. I just want to go back to edges. If I double click that, then I can move this back to I'm going to adjust this to the height that I want this. So I want it to be fairly high. I'm expecting a cushion on there. So just so that I can then extrude out these faces and give myself a little more geometry on this. So if I then go to the scale tool, I can scale that out, but that won't work because I want to keep that edge there. So I need to go to extrude, edit mesh, extrude, and I'm going to set that into the center. I'm going to scale that so that it goes over the top. Now the important thing here is that I've got this edge that runs all the way across the back. And now I can set that back to object mode. I'm going to select first the body of the sofa, and then I'm going to hold down shift and left click the bit that I want to cut out from the object. Then I can go to mesh, Booleans, Boolean difference, and this will cut out one from the other. And you can see here I've got a shape that would work as a sofa. So now I'm actually going to go back to my channel box and turn off that character size there. So I've got fairly good geometry in certain places. So these are quads. I can see that's a four-sided shape, that's a four-sided shape, there's four-sided shapes there. There's some areas like these bits that are ngons, so a number of polygons, a number of edges that aren't 3, which we'd call tris, or 4 that is quads. So this I'm going to fix, and the reason I'm going to fix this is if I focus in on this object and press 2 or 3, you can see it's kind of got a messy smooth. It will look like that because there's not quite enough geometry in. So I'm going to do a couple more steps, such as if I bevel this, so I may want to bevel the edges and then smooth it. You can see that the geometry on that is super messy. So this is because I haven't changed it into quads. So I'll just bring that back into the solid shape for modeling and undo the bevel. So undo a few times. And to fix this, I'm going to use the Multicut tool again. There are certain areas where we can add in these angles to make this work. So to make a quad here, I can left click that vertex and that vertex, press enter, and that's made quads on this face. So it may need more geometry through this as well, but that's sorted out that aspect there quite quickly. When we get to the top and the side, we need to be quite careful on how we place these. So I would guess that down the side I can 1, 2, 3, I take from this vertex. I didn't press enter, so I'll just undo that one. Undo and fix that. So I must remember to press enter when I've finished doing my cuts. So back to here, I can get to this vertex, down here, and this is where it's useful to not have pressed enter. I can bring that edge all the way across here and back up to that point. So that's turned the sides into quads. So now I press enter and that sets those quads up. So the last piece, which is trickiest, because as I create a quad across here, then it will turn the back of the sofa into an n-gon. So it's gonna need some work all the way around. I'll bring that across the back. Oh, I've got a messy piece there, so I want to bring that across, down to the bottom of the sofa, and just need to work out where best to connect this over here. Click that over to there, and probably join it onto this one and fix what I thought I'd fixed over here. Finally, I do it the other way around this time. Over the back of the sofa. Back to this point here. Press enter. So I do have these triangles here, but they're not n-gons. So when I smooth this, it is better than when I did have n-gons. So using the triangles, I'm not going to spend all my time trying to get rid of those. Using the triangles and quads, I can make that work. So if I go back to the shape of my sofa now, I can try and see how this works when I do a bevel. Just do a quick save before I do that. So if I have, just leave it in object mode, and object mode. Yep, I don't want to use it in multicut anymore, so I'll use the select tool. I'm going to do a test, which is a bevel on all of it, and then smooth it, and this will give me the much better geometry than I had previously. So I don't actually want to bevel everything, so I'll go back to how it was and select the edges that I want to bevel and have rounded. So we want this to look comfortable, and so if I select these edges around here, the back of the sofa is often completely squared off, and I'll just select those also. Contemplating these bits, but I won't. They will be hidden by cushions anyway. And the back piece too. So here I can add some rounding. Edit mesh, bevel, and so that's one segment on that. I will actually add that to add more on that. So it's 3, so it's got a kind of rounded edge. So I may not need to smooth this when I'm working with it now. But that's really given me this reasonably good geometry. Again, where it's got these, if I am smoothing it, where it's got these edges, it needs to have extra geometry in there. So I'll just show you. I am going to undo this because I'm not working to a smoothed workflow, but if I add in edge loops in certain places, then it will hold that geometry much better. So this bit was going very rounded. If I now look at this in object mode and then try and look at the smooth preview, I can see that there is more, it's holding it more. And if I had an edge loop around the bottom, I can actually do it while it's live. So I'll add in use the control key and add extra geometry in there, and that will start to just straighten those out. And you can see there it's come in and become much straighter. So adding in these extra bits of geometry really kind of straightens the bits out. So I'm suggesting that we don't need to do that, so I'm going back a few steps. It's running slow, so I want to take these edge loops out as well, the extra ones, just to keep my geometry down to a minimum. And finally, just to add the cushions in, we'll use a cube, quite a small cube. I'm not seeing my work through that, so I can add these X-rays, so I can see, I can add it into X-ray mode, so I can see how that works. So I'm just trying to find my cube, and I'll scale that up so I can get that to be a good shape for this. Actually, I need to lift that up rather than push it back. So once I've got it in a reasonable position, I'll turn the X-ray off so I can see where it's getting placed, and expand that up more. So I'm going to have two cushions on here, so I just want to get the scaling fairly accurate, even if I'm doing it by eye, and then I'll duplicate that. I used Apple D, but you can use the duplicate here. And so there's two objects in the same space there, and one will pull over to the right. So that's just checking the size. And that's about right. I want it to be a little bit loose. So just to finish that off, make sure I'm in object mode again, bring that up, and I want to round off these corners. Oh, it's a bit thick, so I'm going to scale that down, and then edit mesh, bevel. Just give that a rounded edge again. So that should be very clean geometry because it's very simple. And bring that one across. And then finally I'll duplicate both of these and lift them up, rotate them. I'll check the angles as I do that, so I'll turn it around so I can see the right angle to push this at, and just put them into the right position there. So just to finish this off, I will select all the objects, and if I hold down the right click I can assign a new material. I want it to be matte. In this case I'm just going to give it a Lambert, which is a very simple material, and just going to make it white for now. So white sofa's a bit impractical. For now I will have that as I work with it, and that's finished.